Hi, everyone. Welcome to Informed Dissent. We believe that this is episode 15.
Right? We're a news podcast that brings you dispatches from the gender culture war. I'm Ben Appel. Who are you?
Jamie Reed.
All right. And then we have Corey Cohn. He's off screen right now, helping or taking care of a work issue. He'll be joining us shortly. Lisa and Eliza are both out today. They both are under the weather,
I,
unfortunately.
I think a lot of illness is going around right now.
I think so too.
The end of winter crud.
hmm Have you
Yeah.
been experiencing it all or no? You've been good.
Yeah, it's some.
Okay.
Coughing, kids coughing. Yeah, it's been going around.
Got it. I've been okay so far, knock on wood. So what's happened this week? What's been in the news? What's going on? There's so much other stuff going on besides like there's not gender isn't really the focal point of so much this week, which is kind of nice, I guess, but there's a lot of drama with tariffs and with different protests and this and that. I'm not going to even get into all of that, but that has taken up a lot of the combo this week. I know you testified, right?
Yes, but I also do think for those deep in the gender culture wars, I think this week did have some highlights. So a lot of people, I think, were clued in that it was D-Trans Awareness Day.
Well, that's a big one. I'm sorry. You're right.
Yes. And there are a number of people in DC. Um, I personally was in Wisconsin. I had cheese curds for the first time. I was impressed, I will admit.
I don't even know what
Um,
that is. What's a cheese curd?
it was cheese that was very lightly breaded, fried, and then came out like a pile of lightly fretted masses of cheese that you then dip in some other dairy related product. And then people were also eating cheese soup. So I do think there is a lot of cheese to be had in Wisconsin.
Yeah, I don't think that you can go wrong with that. That sounds fried cheese. I mean,
Yes, it was fried cheese. It was okay. I,
yeah.
I
So anyway,
I'm
you
trying.
were in Wisconsin and then D-Trans Awareness Week. Yeah. So tell me about that.
Which one?
Well, both. Let's start with D-Trans Awareness. We is it week or day?
Day. So
Okay.
D-Trans Awareness Day occurred this year. It's an international event, and there was a pretty well organized speaking engagement in Washington, D.C. They brought together a number of some of the more public detransitioners. They spoke, they held a press conference. I think that there's a lot of legislative pushes right now around this issue, and one of those areas does include what is often referred to as detransitioner bills of rights.
Mhm.
So, looking at insurance coverage for detransitioning care, medical coverage, the expansion of medical malpractice laws so that people who have been harmed can sue. So that was a pretty big conversation going on in DC this week. And
Okay.
I flew in and out and I had lovely meals with a number of the detransitioners who are so gracious with me and they embrace me with so much kindness. And we have a lot of really good emotional connections.
Why does that surprise you, their embrace of you? It sounds like it's almost surprising. Is that because of your history working in a gender clinic? Does that come up? Are you aware of that? Are you thinking about that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm aware of it. I think about it. And yes, I'm very surprised that these, especially young people, embrace me with so much kindness. But we also have this connection where I think for so many of us that know so much about this, one of the first hurdles you have to get over with normies is this really happening? Oh, this doesn't really happen, or oh, it's a tiny minority, or there's always this downplaying that we're kind of exaggerating or making it up. And there's this one element for me with somebody who has medicalized and is now detransitioning, where we intuitively never have to go there. We just know right off the bat. Like there's this understanding of where we're coming from as being legit and real, and they never question any of the things that I have seen because they have lived what I have seen.
Totally. That makes sense. I feel like that way about with other gay people too, who are plugged in and tuned into this issue and the importance of it when it comes
Don't
to,
you feel like you can go way deeper, way
oh,
quicker?
100 million% immediately off the bat. There's just so
Yes.
much. Yeah. And you know what's interesting is because talking with people too, I you're right. It's the, oh, this is affecting so few people. I just had an experience like that with when it comes to women's athletics recently. I'm not going to say in what situation I received this message, but I had made what I thought was an innocuous comment in a conversation about with other gay people about you know, how it's so odd to me to see Democrats opposing a bill that would protect women's and girls' sports under the guise of, oh, this could open women up to predation and sexual assault. And they have this whole myth that, oh, there's going to be these genital inspections for girls if this, which is a complete myth. But it's just the gall of them to suggest that when we have on record situations where female
Yeah.
athletes have had to
Yes.
undress in front of males
Yes.
in locker rooms because of existing policies. Now, this is documented. I cite it as an evidence of this, and I received a response that said, "How dare you?" This is like 10 people in the entire NCAA, and that person, and those are Trump lackeys that are spreading that. It was so bizarre to me, and I just thought, how did we get to a place where gay people are scoffing at the idea that women and girls deserve privacy and equal rights and their boundaries to be respected? It's just such a weird, weird thing. And secondly, I don't, first of all, if if there's 10 athletes, that's affecting dozens, hundreds of girls. Second of all, the UN report released, this report on violence against women and girls, and there's a section in there about sports and athletics, and women have had their teeth kicked out, women have had obviously, uh, brain injuries and there's Peyton McNabb and so on, and I don't care if it's one situation where a girl had to undress in front of a male, that it should never have to happen. Should not be even one case of this. And if we have policies that are opening up this possibility, it's just completely bogus. But yeah, so that was a frustration I ran into this week. Like, this isn't really happening, or it's so few that it doesn't matter. And it's like, well, what is the critical mass point? How many does this need to affect for it to matter? How many vaginoplasties need to occur on people who are 17 or younger? Or how many top surgeries, mastectomies need to occur on 15-year-old girls for you to think, this is an issue? Um, so yeah, I completely relate.
Hi, Corey.
Hello.
How are you?
Good. Are you in cheese state still?
No, I'm not, but I did eat cheese curds. We did briefly discuss that.
Cheese curds are delicious.
They were. Yes. You should have come. Hopefully
Next time.
next week. Yes. So yes, I was in Wisconsin and I did testify, and there was a powerhouse kind of team there. So I love walking in to a hearing room like that when you're normally alone and really have to be on edge, and having Jamie Mitchell and Sasha from Gays Against Groomers already, sitting there ready. Um, Moms for Liberty was there. Parents for Ethical Care. Jeanette, I'm sorry, I'm
Jeanette,
slow.
Jeanette's amazing.
Yes, yes, Jeanette.
She is fearless.
She just rides in like on her soul horse, and she just will go into town.
Can
She's
I tell you a
just
story about her really
yes,
quick?
yes,
Since
I love
since,
her.
since we're just gonna ramble now that I'm here. When we were testifying in Texas in 2023, the this is the same day I think that the activists in the evening did the die-in, but there were probably 200, 300 mostly gays and lesbians showing up, and they were in the outdoor rotunda chanting multiple levels with porch or like outdoor balconies that you could stand on, hundreds of them chanting. They got all their little orgs there and stop the trans genocide, blah, 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 blah. Jeanette and I came out and stood right in the middle of all of these activists yelling and chanting. And if they had any idea who we were, they might have objected to us being there. And any of them could have recognized either of us because neither of us are particularly anonymous. But they didn't. And we just stood there taking it all in for 5 minutes or so before the noise became too much to want to deal with. So we just walked back and met up with our group. But that is a woman who would face down any danger unflinchingly. And I have so much respect for her.
She also sees the logical in what's the word where she immediately like she'll hear a sentence and she will immediately point
Yes,
out this is logically not this is illogical.
that's right.
Yeah, she's so like super smart, really quick at it too. Yeah, she's great. So she was there. A lot of good testimony. Um, Dr. Travis Morrell was there also from Colorado. I do have a lot of hope because now it seems like state after state, we're not, one off. And there's a good number of us who can provide really good testimony too.
Let's talk about your testimony. So I watched it yesterday. I was really blown away. When did this occur? Was it yesterday?
No, the day before.
Day before, okay.
I,
I saw it. LGBT Courage Coalition posted the video of it. I wanted to
yeah.
play it for the. Are you okay with that? Yeah, good.
Yeah. Is it the first question that was asked?
It is I don't know, whichever one I retweeted that was getting retweeted, Jennifer Say, a
Yes.
lot of different people, Julia
That's
Mason.
the, yeah, that was the first question. Yeah, feel
So,
free.
so okay, good. Because, I wanted to play it for our audience because it's a really, really powerful testimony, and then we can chat about it a little bit. And Corey, I'm not sure if you saw it, but I'm gonna put it up now. It starts with one of the representatives asking you kind of a rambling question about what sounds like how you changed your mind, how you came to see things differently. So we'll get through that rambling question for a second, and then it'll get to your testimony. So I'm going to play that now.
Was it the science? Was it the witness? What part changed? And then is there anything in your testimony that you wanted to say that you weren't able to say as a result of, you said there's questions that you could answer?
Thank you, Representative, for the question. Yes, I was once an absolute true believer. I trained judges within the state of Missouri around gender affirming care. I trained all of the other divisions within the hospital setting around what is referred to as gender affirming care. I believed wholeheartedly in this protocol. My spouse is trans, who has now walked back her transition. She was trans for 13 years. There were 3 aspects that made me come to change my mind. Number 1, this protocol itself was built on regressive stereotypes and is homophobic. The first 70 children that were put through this protocol, 68 of them were same-sex attracted. The entire DSM protocol is based on stereotypes about what sexed behavior looks like, and most gays and lesbians in childhood do not fit the mold of what regressive stereotypes look like for sexed behavior. Of the 71st children that were put through this protocol, one of them died because the protocol itself destroyed what used to be the way that we would invert an adult's penis to make it a vagina. The puberty blocker itself makes the penis not grow to the point where that child was put through a vaginoplasty that used their colon instead, and they died of a massive infection. The protocol itself is homophobic. Number two, I saw a patient population go from 4 new intakes per month of children who are mostly pre-pubertal boys to 50 to 60 new patients per month, and 80% of them were teenage girls. Guess what teenage girls have in common? They are absolutely susceptible to social contagion. This occurred right when COVID lockdowns happened, right when we stuck one of these in all of those teenagers' phones, and right when we saw all of these girls watching videos. We actually referred to it in the clinic as TikTok ticks. They literally were parroting and coming into our clinic with the exact same storyline that they learned online about what it meant to be trans. And then third and finally was that I actually harmed patients. This protocol itself physically harmed my patients to the point where I was sending children to the emergency room for emergency surgeries after they had their first sexual experience and their vaginas were ripping open. We removed the breast of a young woman who called us back begging to have them put on. She not only had detransitioned and was re-identifying as a woman, she was also pregnant. She also grew up in foster care. And she literally told us that part of this identity for her was a social contagion. So I absolutely had to change my mind because ethically it is the only right thing to do. And I beg my party, please do the scientific right thing. Thank you.
All right. So yeah, I wanted to play that because it was really great. It's you so succinctly put in, kind of breaking down the origin of the Dutch protocol. That we've talked about this before, but that this was about the boys essentially, or about, uh, the necessity of blocking puberty to keep males from masculinizing during puberty so that they could more adequately, possibly more adequately pass as female in adulthood. Um, and of the first 70, um, you said 68, and you had 68 were same-sex attracted. Um, and I think that's right. I mean, I know that as far as I remember, just one was heterosexual. I think like 62 were gay, 7 were bisexual. They stated that they were attracted to both sexes. So at least 62 were just gay. And then another 7 or so were bisexual, one was heterosexual. So you're right. This did start as there were a lot of young people coming to gender clinics, most of them boys. And I think this has to do with society's lack of acceptance for, girly boys, gender nonconforming boys. It's fine for girls to act like boys, but it's unacceptable for boys to act like the typical female. Um, and that was a problem. What do we do with these sissy boys? And maybe they're really girls. Maybe they can be girls. Maybe we can raise them as girls. Maybe they can become women. And that was what, was going on with this. And they also saw that adult trans women were not faring well, that there were high depression rates, there was high suicidal ideation, there were actual suicides. And they thought, well, perhaps this has to do with the fact that they can't pass. That seems like it's what's causing their dissatisfaction with their lives. So let's arrest these little boys' puberty, the people who they once were. And again, the problem was, okay, weeding out which kids are going to decide to transition and attempt to live as the opposite sex in adulthood. So there's filtering that. But yeah, you're right. It's just, who gets caught up in that net? Well,
Yeah.
who's really gender nonconforming as kids typically? Who's are the girly boys and the butch girls? Well, they're typically gay, they grow up to be gay men and lesbians.
So so every time I do this, I struggle because I just want to talk to the Democrats, and I feel like I never break through and reach them. But I wonder, Ben, if you think that this is successful in terms of messaging to that party. And then Corey, um, you have testified before. Do you even worry about that anymore, or do you just say what you feel like needs to be said?
You go first, Corey.
I always try to talk to the Democrats, but I try to call them to courage because here is a fact. Many, not all, but many of the Democrats are aware of the complexities of this issue. Many of them, if you are able to talk to them one-on-one, will admit that the issue is not as partisan and is certainly more difficult to understand than how it's portrayed in the media.
Okay, so
But
they get it complex.
they are in a tribe. So this is we are somewhat in a tribe also. And by somewhat I mean we are totally in a tribe. But they are also in a tribe. Their tribe, the Democrats, do not have a tribal value of independent thinking in this day and age. That is not a tribal value. Jamie, I don't know if you're muted or just
I'm not muted. But I thought that they did. Was I
no,
naive?
no. The Democrats broke in November of 2016 when Hillary Clinton lost. The
Oh,
Democrats
okay.
went into an echo chamber. By the way, hilariously mocked on Saturday Night Live, and they had a little segment where everybody's living in a dome and everything's perfect. That's the Democrats.
Wait,
And
there's a segment about
yeah,
2016 and Hillary
well,
went in there.
it's
And
open to interpretation. That's how I interpret it.
okay. I will find this. Okay. So that's when
The
they broke.
they broke, so they they became extremely dogmatic. Everything was about how terrifying Trump is, and the idea here, and it all stems from this. I'm confident. If you say anything like, "Yeah, on the whole, Trump's not that good, but at least it seems like he was making some progress with peace in Israel, right?" If you say something like that, how could you possibly defend Trump? What's wrong with you? So even just saying anything remotely nuanced about Trump would get you thrown out of the tribe. And there are some very smart people who noticed that these tendencies were happening and kept driving the party further and further to the left because any sort of disobedience from, you could say, Me Too, you could say George Floyd, you could say COVID masks or the COVID vaccine, any deviation from the consensus of the tribe, people were just getting thrown out left and right. So many of the people who are gender critical now were very far on the left and went, you know what? I've been a defender of women's rights for decades, and I see that there's you could either have policies based on sex or policies based on gender identity, but you cannot have both of those things at the same time. And I think sex is more important. Boom, those people were gone. Gone. And here's a really good example. Our friend Martina Navratilova, who has diagnosed stage 4 chronic Trump derangement syndrome, maximally. Like I can't follow her Twitter because it's just like I think she has a little shrine to Rachel Maddow in every room in her house. Totally stage 4. She's exiled from the left because she doesn't think that men should be in women's sports. So
Okay, I'm going to interrupt you here.
yeah,
If anybody has a shrine to Rachel Maddow in any room of their home, I would love to see it. Please take a photograph and put it in the comments
yeah,
because
please.
that would be amazing.
But you can see that just one variance on any of these issues causes somebody to be thrown out of the tribe. And it's especially difficult for any of these politicians because their ability to be reelected depends on funding from this tribal source. And we are in a post, oh gosh, what was that court case that basically allowed as much
Oh.
money to come in? Yeah,
I know what you're talking
it's
about.
at the tip of my tongue too. It'll come back in just a second.
I'll look it up.
The NGOs became so powerful. The parties are weak right now, at the state level and at the federal level, and the shot callers are the people who can control these fundraising PACs, which are extremely tied to these NGOs. So the Democrats don't want to risk losing power by saying anything that is that the tribe doesn't want to hear. And do you remember it? You looked it up?
Are you talking about Citizens United?
Yeah, Citizens United. That's exactly.
That essentially gave personhood to corporations, orgs, etc.
Well, they already had personhood.
But it allowed like unfettered, unlimited money essentially to
That's
come
correct.
in.
That was the
Okay.
consequence.
So it was Citizens United. Yes. Okay.
So after Citizens United, which the Republicans were all for and the Democrats were all against, yet everything flipped 180 degrees. The Democrats became the party of the corporate funding. You can see that. Go all the way back to Hillary Clinton. You can see that the Republicans have had much less public fund or corporate funding support over the last 10 years. But that's the situation right now. So the question is, how do we affect a group of people who are so entrenched in tribal thinking that is also hostile to any sort of heterodox contemplation?
Well, okay, so we have MAGA. I'm sorry. I mean, I've seen MAGA become more and more like the Democrats in the way that they were. I'm not saying that all Republicans are behaving in this way, but certainly this, you know, any kind of criticism of Trump in MAGA is you're kind of seen as, oh, you're not real MAGA. You're not real.
Yes.
You're not with us. So one of my biggest concerns, maybe my main concern about him being reelected was how the reaction was going to be among Democrats and on the left. You know, this idea that, for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. And like you talked about, Corey, in 2016, people's brains breaking. It's like, okay, yeah, the Democrats broke, but there was also, there was just such a clash, and they both reacted on each other. They both were, Trump's obviously very reactionary. And so, it was all of these people just reacting to each other, and that's what it was and has continued to be. And that's what we're living in once again. So, it's like, how can we do this when Democrats are so, well, that's what I feel kind of hopeless about, because uh it's not going to have, especially giving Trump the reins to this. The Democrats ceding this issue to Donald Trump of all people, for them to give him the opportunity to come in with solutions to, restore or work on restoring a women's rights to privacy and private spaces and athletics, to, give him the potential win of ending uh, quote unquote sex changes for distressed kids and gay kids and autistic kids. I mean, um, that is devastating, and it's so angering and maddening to me. But you're right. How do we do it? But I just don't think, as long as is it's him, and it's never gonna we're never gonna get past that. I don't know what's gonna happen.
We can't go back in time, but I still have a number of individuals who still wish on this issue that Kamala Lama would have won. Because
Of course.
then the Dems could have kept going, and they could have, I think the hope would have been that they could have come out the other side.
Yeah, but they're never going to,
They're ne
because you look at if they couldn't do it under Biden, they're not going to do it at all.
Yeah, I agree. Well,
Okay.
actually,
Well then we give up and the party's over
well, no, I don't know. I mean,
and we all become libertarian independents like Corey.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, if I had known that the Democrats were going to die on this hill, I wouldn't have been fighting against this so hard. I'm totally fine with the Democrats never being in power again. I'm not a Republican, but I think the Democrats have horrible policies. So I'm totally satisfied if they want to wander in the desert for the next 40 years. I'm not sure that the Republicans are doing a lot better. I can spend the next hour criticizing them, but gosh, Democrats. You know what? You can't run. You can run a city on compassion. You can run all of your local services on compassion, but you can't run an international federal government as with compassion as your number one guiding value. It's just
Okay,
impossible.
but I think I think there was a Democratic Party that was not interested in running the federal government on compassion.
Yeah, there used to be.
Did Clinton not balance the budget?
Bill Clinton.
That's what I'm
Bill
saying.
Clinton. Yeah,
He
he did it
also
with
came in,
Newt Gingrich.
but he also came in and he fired a whole bunch of federal workers like Trump is doing right now.
Yeah,
I
the
mean,
Bill Clinton was what was called a yellow dog Democrat, and all of those people are gone now. They've been removed from the party. There's no moderate Democrats. Your most moderate Democrat is Amy Klobuchar, right? Where are the rest
and
of the moderate
Pocahontas.
Democrats?
and who else you said, Jamie?
Sorry, it was bad. I said Pocahontas.
Oh,
No, she's not. Are you kidding? Are you saying she's
I
moderate?
no, joking.
think
Right?
she's moderate, but
No.
She's one of the most far left members of the Senate.
Yeah. Corey, you said that if the Democrats weren't gonna fix it under Biden, then they weren't gonna fix it under anybody. I think that could possibly be wrong, because Biden was decrepit. He was the perfect useful idiot to for the NGOs. It was the perfect post Citizens United era for him to be the leader for these NGOs and activists and queer theory freaks to come and install their policies and their agenda at the federal level. And he, can stand there with, and say, this is the civil rights. I mean, he was just a moron because he was old and he just didn't know. He just did not know.
Mm.
Okay,
And
I don't know that Biden was an idiot. I think that Biden actually had lost his mind and should have been removed and was not a functional president.
yeah,
Okay.
But how would they have fixed it under, I guess I kind of agree with Ben. How would they have fixed it?
I'm not saying that it would have. I'm just saying that I think that actually Biden was the perfect president for that to happen. And perhaps a sane or, a
Oh,
mentally fit president
yeah.
would not be as malleable. Um, I don't know. I honestly don't know. I don't know.
But we also cannot go back in time. We're kind of
We,
stuck with what we have now.
we can't go back in time, but also, Corey, you said, I don't want the Democrats. I can't stand the Democrats anymore either. I'm not a Republican, but I'm disgusted. And I, tweeted this the other day, but it's just like, what's so aggravating to me is that they still expect me to trust what they have to say, about the economy, about foreign policy, about, yes, tariffs could be an absolute disaster. Do I feel, calmer that we're possibly getting into these trade wars with the European Union and with Canada? No, it doesn't make me feel good at all. I'm like, what the hell is happening? This makes me feel stressed out and
Mhm.
this, I don't think this is good. But I'm also not an economist. And so
Yeah.
if the side that is telling me that this is a terrible idea and that this is yet another coup and that this is more fascism and that this is, and he's a Putin's, crony and he's a Russian asset. And then in the next breath, you tell me sex differences don't matter. I can't trust you. I cannot trust you. I think about this a lot, but it's like how, Colin Wright's Substack title, Reality's Last Stand. There is there's an importance of acknowledging like the building block of life and material reality and understanding who we are and where we come from. And to deny that and to attempt to queer that reality um, makes me not want to jump down that postmodern rabbit hole with you, even if some of your answers to are that are still grounded in and remain in material reality, because it doesn't seem like economy has been queered yet in your opinion, or in your proposals. I don't want to go down there with you. I can't. That is a civilization ending, just complete nutso world that it's through the look of
Yes.
fact that I can't do it, right?
Okay, so then let me ask Corey this because I like hope and I like to feel like there's something positive. So, Ben, I totally I agree with you 1,000% that as soon as I lost all of my trust in the Democratic Party and in the institutions around gender, it did make me start going, "Uh, what the fuck have I been wrong about everything else?" Like, so I've felt that. But I also don't know that I have the same positive outlook or trust that you have, Corey, that the Democratic Party can just go wander in the desert for 40 years and we're with Trump and Mac. Like, how does this work? How does this work out?
What do you mean? I didn't say
Like,
anything about trust.
but
The
you
what?
seem like he didn't say anything about trust, is what he said. But
Yeah,
you seem like you're like, okay, I guess, is there this, I will say I'm now going to be 45, and there is some part of me that basically is like, you know what? On some level, it doesn't really matter who's president.
that's true.
My entire life, I've still had to work a job, been able to feed my kids. It's been tough in some years and better in others. Honestly, probably the years that fiscally was the best was when Trump was in office the last time, and we got a child tax credit that was amazing for a number of years. I mean, like, I get that on some level it doesn't matter who the party in charge is and who the president is. It doesn't. Is that kind of where you come from? That it's all a wash anyway? That America will stay standing?
Well, America could stay standing. In order for America to stay standing, though, the citizens have to, at some level, have some common beliefs. We can't we can't continue to exist if everybody believes something different. And
That when people say this is civilization ending, it is true.
well, that's what I believe. That's what I believe. I don't. So here's the thing that I really believe, and I made a comment on my X account the other day that my gender identity has turned into smoke in the crucible of time, but the libertarian gold still remains.
Yes, I did see that. Yes.
I believe that no society where a compelled belief that it's possible to change sex, where that's the norm, I don't believe that any society can continue to exist, because if you can be compelled to accept, to affirm something which is blatantly unreal, there's no place where that compelling force will stop. So if you're going to be removed from your job for saying that men can't become women, if you're not allowed to have positions in society, if you're not allowed to hold public office because you say men cannot become women, then we are living in an unreal Orwellian state. And I can't tolerate that. If we can't say things that are true, if we're going to be punished, if we're going to be possibly thrown in jail, if we're going to throw morticians in jail in Colorado because they recorded the sex of the deceased person accurately, this is not a society that can continue indefinitely. I believe this is civilization ending. I don't know that it is, but based on my belief, I have to take action if I think that there's something in this civilization worth saving. And I really think that there is. I think that the Democrats, if you talk to them one-on-one in a closet that's been soundproofed, and there's not another human person in a mile radius, that they'll probably say what they think is true. They'll probably agree. But the dynamics for them to be able to get back into office again means that they have to say these things that are not true.
Okay, but I don't want you in office again if you cannot stand up for reality.
Yes, for either party, actually.
Correct.
Yes.
But also, am I the only one that's fucking terrified?
Of
Maybe it's just as a mom, I'm like, if we are in a society where you can't say things that are true, that this is a society that cannot continue, how the fuck am I supposed to keep my kids safe and like fed and like go to school and like moving forward and like
Oh,
I want them
that's
in this
easy.
either.
That's easy. You tell them we are currently living under a psychotic regime. You have to pretend that you are in agreement with
This is the
the
stuff
other
of
crazy people.
nightmares.
Oh, yes. But you're asking, how do you keep them safe? This is how you keep them safe. is you tell them to go along with what other people are doing, to keep their heads down, to keep their thoughts to themselves, and to avoid making any associations with people like us.
Here's the thing. I think that Trump has serious authoritarian impulses. I think that he is authoritarian. I think that, I don't think that regardless of what's true about, whether like Martina might say, you know, Putin has info on Trump and he's got him like a marionette and he's blackmailing him and this is what's going on, or regardless of what Elizabeth Warren says about the how we're gonna lose our money and tariffs are gonna destroy the economy.
Mhm.
I do think that Trump is very authoritarian. I think that, and I've talked to supporters, MAGA supporters, and I say to them, and I'm like, look, I respect it. I respect that you supported this man. But what do you think founding fathers would say? And they'd say, oh, they would be rolling over in their grave. But I think that, I support him over the Democrats. So I do think that he has these authoritarian impulses. So I kind of thought, okay, so what is it? What am I more afraid of? Like authoritarianism or postmodern hellscape? Like because, the crazier the left gets and all of this stuff gets, the more of a quote unquote mandate MAGA has to do whatever they want. They're always just like, oh, we have this mandate. We have a mandate. The voters voted. We have a mandate to just do this and do that and do this and do that. And it's like, well, I don't know. Um, but and political parties have always made great leaps ahead by, exploiting culture war issues, obviously. But anyway, it's like, okay, postmodernism, authoritarianism, civilization ending postmodernism, or what? I don't know. Like what's further down, fascism, or if it does lead towards fascism. Now, I'm not saying that fascism is on the left, but I'm saying that this authoritarianism that Trump exhibits is worrisome. And then I read, Andrew Sullivan's post this past week, and he said something about how Trump is also practicing a kind of critical theory, a kind of postmodernism. He makes up truths, he makes up things,
Sure,
he
sure.
goes with what, and then people believe him.
Mhm.
That it suddenly what's true is something different than what was the day before. So does that give me 1 point for the left? Does that give me 1 point for Democrats and -1 for the side of Trump?
Well, you're mixing two things here, Ben. I'm going to call you on it.
Okay.
Trump is not suggesting that people should be jailed for disagreeing with him, but the Democrats are suggesting that people should be fined and jailed for recognizing sex. So I don't disagree with you saying that Trump himself has authoritarian impulses, but I don't think that that mentality has spread out to all of the members of the Republicans. But the Democrats have taken on this ideology and have internalized it. When
And
Trump is
Ben,
gone, I don't think the Trump mindset is going to live past Trump.
and when Ben was saying that, this is the first thing that I thought about. So Trump gets elected the first time. Pretty much the first thing that journalism, like, well, one of the first things post-election that was all the hullabaloo was about how many people showed up for the inauguration. Right? He tried to be like,
Yes.
it was the largest inauguration that ever occurred, and there were bajillion people there, and journalists were like, no, we counted, there was only 100,000. Um, at the end of the day, though, there really was an inauguration, and there really was a crowd that was there, and there was like that was based in reality. It did occur. Like, was he wrong on? I think he's more of an exaggerator and more of a how can I spin this to make it work for me than a like, than I think some of the Democrats who truly believe you should go to jail for writing down biological sex on a birth certificate, it's not because they're just a narcissist and they're like, this is what's good for me. They truly believe that like that is the right thing to do.
Not that I want to get into this because I'm not the person to be an expert, but like Corey, you said, and Jamie, you're saying this, Trump doesn't want to jail people who disagree with him. I bet you there are going to be a number of listeners that are going to say, what the F are you talking about? Look
Okay,
at
but
Mahmoud
like,
Khalil. Look at this Palestinian activist who is literally possibly being deported, and he got a knock on the door and he's been taken away because the Trump administration doesn't agree with his views. Now, obviously, I'm not saying that there are a lot of different things to argue. I'm torn about the whole thing, but because I'm not an First Amendment expert, okay, but I do feel like I'm a First Amendment absolutist, but I'm also just not an expert. So when I look at Marco Rubio's, explanation of like, look, green cards are contingent upon we wouldn't allow this person to come in if they were going to say I hate the West and I, want to destroy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, whatever. Although I don't know exactly what Khalil has said or done. I know that what's gone on at Columbia very well. I'm just not sure in terms of how much I can believe about reporting in terms of his complicity in specific
okay,
things. Anyway, I'm just bringing that up because
it's a good example, and you're right. It's a good argument for that. Yeah. But also, Trump is just one, there are going to be people that hate me, idiot kind of narcissist who will go away.
so you think Corey, you said you think Trumpism is not going to outlast Trump.
I'm saying that Trump has his own sort of reality distortion field, but the reality distortion field mindset is not going to be distributed or carried forward.
I think I agree with that
I think so too.
because I
But
think,
the
yeah, go ahead.
but the postmodern hellscape will.
Will.
Correct.
Oh, fuck. Oh, God. This is like the heaviest conversation I feel like we've ever had. Like, oh my God.
I've been reconciled to this for so long that it's just like it's just Friday afternoon for me.
How? How? How do you just go to the grocery store and you're like, la la la, we're in the postmodern hellscape?
Well, no, I think it's Corey, what's you've resolved this. You've resolved this, Corey, in
Oh,
terms of this quandary. What's worse? Like my question of like the Trump or the you've it seems like you've resolved the question
Yeah,
I'm still
this
battling.
is one of the areas where describe it as a disability, but I think about how the currents are going to carry us into the future. So what happens this year or this presidential term is really it's so near term that it's just noise right now. But what are the trends that are going to take us into widespread social changes 10 years and 15 years and 20 years down the line? I care about that a lot more, which is why I care so much about the speech issue more than anything else. I care about speech more than anything else. I would gladly lose in the short run on every other issue as long as we are still able to have speech. But if we're not even allowed to say what is true or not anymore, we cannot advocate on any issue. Speech is fundamental.
yeah. I actually,
So you're a pragmatist, but Corey, I feel like you're also a stoic in a lot of ways. And Jamie, I think that you and I, because you just said earlier, Corey, he's positive. You said something like hope. I've said that
I do.
before.
I need
I've
hope.
said that before in terms of something that Corey said, and Corey's like, "What are you talking about? Hope?" And I think that we mistake Corey's stoicism for hope, for positivity. I think Corey's not saying, "Oh, this is great." Corey's saying, "I've accepted that this is the reality and this is
Mhm.
what I've resolved. This is the solution. I've treated this as a mathematical equation and this is the most like or the statistical problem and this is the most
Yes.
likely outcome. And so this is the outcome that I uh am going to be advocating for."
There's some other element here where everything, like, I might be dwelling on this for the next like week because when I say I was so left that I was an anarchist, like, okay, yes, people are like, Jamie, whatever. I truly was in this like green primitivist anarchist movement. Okay, like this concept, like, let's overthrow it all. Let's go back to like a primitivist landscape. If anyone could travel in time and should have just given, I wish somebody could travel in time and just hand me the littlest of note that just says the way to overthrow all things is to just say that men can become women. We could have had this primitivist anarchist glorious thing that I believed in when I was 20 back then.
Well, I suppose that it's good that Lear Keith had that same revelation before you did, realized how demented it was, and immediately took steps to try to prevent that from happening.
I don't know who Lear Keith is.
Oh, you don't? Okay. You explain, Corey.
Well, why
And
don't you?
oh, okay. Well, I'll say
Lear Keith hates me, so
well, I will say that I was way more obsessed with Derek Jensen and Derek
yes.
Jensen's philosophical beliefs on anarchism,
Okay.
and had read tons of Derek Jensen. And I think that Derek Jensen and Lear Keith follow kind of a parallel.
Yes, they're associated with one
Yes,
another.
yes. And so
And
um,
an eco-terrorist group.
I was,
Go ahead.
I mean, that's a broad stroke to call them eco-terrorists.
But they were anarchists, is what you're saying.
They were anarchists, but anarchists of the primitivist variety. So there's the red anarchists who are more IWW, Workers of the World Unite, that we still have factories, that, it's all the unions overthrow the owners, and then everybody just shares ownership of the factory. So that's more of like a red anarchist. There are all these different kind of mind, you can fall down the rabbit hole of anarchism just as you can but kind of that primitivist green anarchist does have some element of the romanticism of pre-agriculture and this belief that when human beings had the most equity in how we structured our societies, it was pre-agriculture, when we were, moving around the planet, murdering each other with
Right.
rocks and stone tools, and dying at the age of 35 because we had no modern medicine. And if you stubbed your toe, you'd be dead in a moment. Yes, I mean, it has its drawbacks, but that's kind of and honestly, Derek Jensen is one of the original critics of the concept around gender.
Mhm.
Yeah.
How is he a critic of that concept? Meaning like we are? Like he was gender
No,
critical or
no. So, okay, so this is going to get super weird for a minute. So please, uh, kids should not be listening to this probably for the next 5 minutes. Okay. So I'm living in an anarchist collective. I'm really deep into this anarchist underground. Written zines are hugely popular at this time. So they're like mimeographed, like, you make photocopies zines. Like zines are everywhere. You could see back then the Palestinian, like, Free Palestine was hugely popular. There's all this conversation about unions and the IWW and green anarchism, but there was also this thread that already existed back then about pedophilia and about children and around consent. And sometimes you would see zines at some of these anarchist gatherings, and you'd look down the table and you would see, oh, Palestine, oh, roadkill, eating roadkill. Okay. Oh, your home abortion from the herbs. Like these were like DIY guides. But you would see on that margin that there was already this conversation brewing around gender and children, and can children consent for sexual relationships with adults, like it was there. I think anytime you get way out into the margins, you see it, and you see that through line is there. And Derek Jensen, there's a video that goes around Twitter sometimes where he takes apart who were the early queer theorists and what did they believe, and he traces it back to pedophilia.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Corey, is
Yeah,
that okay?
I mean that's true. I mean it's true that is how Derek Jensen is most known in the gender community, gender critical community, is that video.
Yeah,
And the
he
video
puts
is
together.
He
the
breaks it all
video
down.
that he puts together, is he calling it out or is he
Yes.
Yeah,
advocating for it? Oh,
yeah,
he's
Oh yeah,
calling it
he's
out.
saying he's
it's
saying the
a
original gender theorists were pedophiles.
And is this the video where he's talking to an audience of people and they're freaking out?
Yes,
Okay, so that's Derek Jensen.
uh-huh.
that's Derek Jensen. You've seen
I
it. He
never
plays
knew
He
who
he
that
does
plays like
was.
he
he
does it
plays
as
like
a
gender critical Jeopardy.
right.
Like yeah, the
Yes.
queer theory. No, yeah, sorry, not gender crit. He's playing queer theory Jeopardy where
Queer
he's
Theory
saying
Jeopardy. I know
who
exactly what
are
you're
all of
talking
the
about.
original queer theorists. It all
Yes.
traces back to
Well, so
pedophilia.
because I'm so familiar with this because I literally, with reading and studying Foucault and studying, all of these, French post-structuralists and stuff. I mean, there were actual petitions to lower the age of consent. I know that this has to do, I mean, look, there are ideas about queering childhood. I mean, I think Jules Gill Peterson wrote I believe his dissertation was titled Queer Theory as Kid Stuff. I believe that where for Rutgers where there are these things that come up about child autonomy and so on. You look at Andrea Long Chu's cover story for New York Magazine and a kid's right to change their sex and it's like what's if can they consent? There's so much talk about consent and informed consent, and they're using in the past. Informed consent was the same language that they would use for arguing about a kid's right to be able to consent to sex with an adult. It's very closely linked.
And
But I mean that's
we don't agree at all. We have informed dissent.
Exactly.
and yeah. Because really that's the through line of that postmodern hellscape. You queer all of the boundaries and all of the lines.
Well, and
Yes.
that's what really when I write about this. You did get dark, Jamie. You did go
I
crazy.
know, and it was really I will say
But
like in my
I
20s
appreciate it.
it's really weird to see that, and at the time I could not piece it together that what this overarching concept is to do because the anarchists like the cool line that you make on the patches is like no laws no masters or like no gods or like things like that.
Human.
Yes, but like you never think, I never would put together no laws, no masters also means no laws, pedophilia. I mean, but when you really pull these
Huh?
theories all the way, I mean, that's what it goes to.
Could I ask you a question, Jamie?
Yeah.
When you believed in these things and you had a passionate defense for these ideas, were you aware that the changes that you wanted to see society adopt would lead to the suffering and deaths of hundreds of millions of people? Were you aware of it? And you were just like, this is part of the cost?
I think I'm not the only person who thinks that modern industrial society also led to huge amounts of suffering and death.
Oh my goodness.
I mean,
So
do
are
you,
you aware that in your lifetime that the rates of crushing poverty of people
yes.
living, are you aware that those rates just in our lifetimes have like decreased by 90%?
Yes, but are you also, I mean, I can flip this. Are you also aware how many species have died because of our overarching, you know, belief that we are the superseding species of the planet?
So you were aware that the things that you wanted would have led to immense human suffering.
I was also 20.
Okay, no,
And
and
no, no,
I'm not
no,
judging.
I
I'm
think
just asking because what I want to know is, were you naive and you didn't think about the consequences, or did
no,
you
it
think
was
about the
not that. I thought
consequences?
about the consequences, and I also thought in measurement that modern industrial society also, I mean, Derek Jensen has like there's whole quotes, like great, we built a dam and now we have power, but how many millions of salmon died as they thrashed their
Yes.
bodies across the dam trying to go back upriver? I mean, like I it was not a naivety per se. Um,
You're just
and there
radical solutions call for radical measures kind of thing. I mean, Corey, are you asking because you want to try to draw a parallel between Jamie's radicalism and the radicalism of today? Like to maybe
Yes.
understand the mindset of younger people who are, I see what you're trying to do
Well,
here.
let me put it this way. It doesn't matter how many of these young people uh, ultimately detransition or are dissatisfied with their gender affirming care, because this is such an important means of fighting against cis heteropatriarchy. So, no matter how many bodies suffer, it's for the greater good of resisting this sort of patriarchal society.
and I absolutely see that, and here's the thing. I still believe that young people should have profound, earth-shattering thoughts and explore things and move our society in different directions and and I'm not opposed to the fact that they hold these
Yeah.
beliefs.
Well, let me keep going.
Yes, keep going.
These young people are our martyrs because we cannot have gay liberation as long as the heteropatriarchy continues to oppress gays and lesbians. So these young people, in the short term, yes, they'll suffer, but in the long term, it's totally worth it to overturn the heteronormative patriarchy. So these young people, in fact, they're just having different gender journeys. If they go through transition and stop, that's just an opportunity for them to see the world differently, and then contribute back to us with what they've learned. But it's worth it because it'll change society.
Yeah, well, I'm so glad we're talking about this because this is like my book that comes, I'm plugging my book, it's coming out in the fall. I
Yeah, yeah,
talk
yeah.
about all of this stuff and it's very troubling. But I mean, Corey, you just brought up this idea of them being the martyrs or them being, I mean,
Hmm.
you know, queer theorist, I think the name is Jasbir Puar, another Rutgers, I believe, professor who wrote a, a book about, queerness and homo nationalism or something like that. Because they just put out these ideas and comparing suicide bombing as a queer act.
Uh-huh.
Okay. You
Right.
know, we're here,
Or self-immolation.
we're suicide bombers, like we're queer. And it's like, eh, eh, cutting off body parts, these destructive acts are are that anarchist impulse. And it is, like Corey said, the cis heteropatriarchy. It's the fight against all of that, queering our reality. It's like the queer person, who transitions. You look at these folks, right? And you look at, older people, let's say gay people who are adults, okay? And they've been living gay for a long time. And then
I love it. They've
they're
been
re
living gay.
yeah, and they get caught up in social justice activism, right? They get really, I mean, they're in the streets at those BLM marches, and then suddenly they're wearing high heels. And then suddenly they're, if it's a man, then suddenly it's like, oh, they're really experimenting with the androgyny thing here, right?
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, they're trans, I'm trans, I'm a trans woman, I'm a woman. And then it's, all of these surgeries, and then it's, oh, I'm she, they, and I'm, and it's full throttle into, I'm, queer, I'm this, I'm that, and I'm, that's that impulse. The transing oneself, you know, ma making one's body malleable, cutting one's body up. That's the suicide bomber, who is fighting Western cis heteropatriarchy by blowing himself up. It's a queer act, and that's at least part of it. I think that it's multifaceted, but there are people that are moved and motivated by that, and especially young women. Sarah Hayter tweeted recently something about, oh, I noticed so many young women, in these protests and these did that. And I said, the only story you have to know to understand what's going on is the story of Patty Hearst and the Symbionese Liberation Army. That's pretty much it. If you want to know, I mean, Patty Hearst, if you're familiar, daughter
Oh,
of
very familiar. Yeah.
Dagny, yeah, and kidnapped by the Symbionese Liberation Army, and then joins them in their cause, and then says later that she was brainwashed. I mean, these folks, I look at these videos and I see these things, and I go to Columbia, I see these things that are going on in these campuses, and all of these women with their heads completely wrapped in keffiyeh, and who knows how many of them have top surgeries planned on the horizon, and how many of them have T prescriptions in the waiting, or if they've already started it. And how many have they, she, they pronouns, or they, him, or who knows what the fuck. And it is that impulse.
It is. Um, my earth just shattered, and so we might want to wrap up in a moment.
Okay.
What
What
Sorry.
happened?
shattered it? I'm just curious. What
What's going
shattered it?
on?
Because to me, it's just Friday.
It is no. JK just retweeted the video of me testifying in
Woo woo.
Wisconsin, and I'm just like,
That's a big deal.
it is a
You're
big
you're
deal.
verklempt.
Thanks,
Yeah.
JK. Thanks, Joe.
Yes, thank you. Thanks, Joe. Also, though, it's tough because every wave where there's like more people that know I exist, there's more people that say I should be in jail. Um, you your apology is worthless. Yeah, it's just tough to see that. And it comes in waves, and and half the time when I want to reply to them, I'm like, you're absolutely right. Like I should have known better earlier. I shouldn't have done what I did, but I can only keep moving forward. But yeah, but
That's
that's my highlight of the week. She just reposted that
hell
video.
yeah. Hell yeah. That's a good one. Corey, do you have a non-gender related thing or any kind of highlight?
I went to my first Purim festival last night.
How was that?
It was fun.
What
It
happens at a
was
Purim festival?
Yeah.
well, what I was told is what happens doesn't get communicated.
Oh
But
my God.
I can tell you, we read some we read the story of uh, oh my gosh, my brain is just like, don't
Was
say
there
that word.
food?
What's that?
Was there
Es
food?
it's Esther and
Oh,
what's his name? I'm
I
a
want to
I'm
say Ruth, but that's
no,
because
it's
of
not.
the red
My
tent, but
I'm
that's not it.
no, I'm a see. They're not going to let me become a Jew if I can't even remember something basic like this.
That's
But
okay. You're new. You're new
it's
at it.
I just I know it, but it's one of those things because I'm
I
getting
know.
older now, the word won't manifest.
No,
So
I know.
I know it's terrible. I'm going to be 50 in a couple of months.
I,
Isn't that terrifying? So I'm gonna we're gonna get off and it's gonna come straight back.
that's okay.
Yeah, it's about how they foiled the plans of Haman, who's like, boo, who's trying to kill all the Jews.
There's a VeggieTales episode about this too, in case you want to watch it.
Nice.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
That's what we watched. Oh, I'm not supposed to mention that.
yeah. I love VeggieTales. Anyway,
What happens in
Mordecai.
Purim stays in
Gosh darn it.
Purim.
it is
Mordecai.
Malachi. Yes, and it is the
Not
VeggieTales
Malachi,
episode.
Mordecai.
Oh, yes, it's the VeggieTales episode.
Yeah, I couldn't get the word out of my brain.
Okay, we are not going to link to VeggieTales in this podcast, please.
I don't know. Maybe we will. I think we might have.
No.
Okay, no
Okay,
bets.
Ben,
No,
what
no
was
Lincoln. Okay.
your thing for the week?
Let's see. What was my thing for the week? I enjoyed this. I really enjoyed talking to you guys today. Jamie, I
It
enjoyed
was
your
a heavy one.
speech. It was a heavy one. I got my cover, my book cover design.
Hey, that's
So
gender
that's
related.
ready to go. That is gender related.
No, but do
But
you like it?
congratulations.
Book
I
cover's
love
so
it.
important. Oh, good.
Love it
Okay.
because I
Can you
designed it.
can
So
you
I
show
love
it?
it.
No.
I
Screen
think
share,
I
throw it up.
actually can show it
Can
because
you?
it's
Aha.
I approved it.
You're the
So
model for it too.
what's that?
You're the model for it also.
Oh no, I'm not the model for it.
That's not what
Um,
you're telling us.
Is it a
Yeah, put
risque
it up on the
calendar?
screen. Put it up on the
okay, so I'm
screen.
gonna put it up here.
He's just being modest.
This is what I did approve. So give me one moment here. Um, there might be some listeners that hate it. There might be some,
Well,
here we
if they're just
go.
listeners, they won't have an
They
opinion
won't, you're
until they
right.
see it. Oh,
Oh,
that's the different from the one you showed me.
It is different from the one I showed you.
Okay, that's why you're not the model here.
I think this is really powerful. There are elements too that, yeah, I think this is really powerful, Ben. This is really good.
Thank you. I guess I'll put it in the note, or hopefully I'm gonna have a pre-link up, a pre-order link up soon. So for listeners that can't see this, and I won't be able to put it in the show notes, you'll see it soon because it'll be up shortly. But yeah, this is it, guys. Your exclusive.
Beautiful.
Well, you've worked very hard on this, so I'm very excited for you, Ben.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you.
Yeah. That's
Um,
excellent.
yeah.
Okay.
All right,
Well, till
guys.
next
That was
week,
good. Amen.
hopefully, the other ladies can join me back again next week.
Absolutely. Have a great week, guys. Have a great week, everyone listening and watching.
You too.
All right.
Bye.